Yeah, Jesus, we just give you all the praise. You're worthy of all praise, Jesus. You're worthy of it all. All our hearts, all our sorrows, all our strengths, all our giftings. We just lay it all at your feet. We give you all the praise and all the adoration, Lord God. We thank you for saving us. We thank you for making us free, for bringing restoration into our lives. And not just doing it once, but doing it again and again and again and again. We thank you for your love, God. We have come. We have come. Give you glory. We have come. Give you praise. We have come. Give you glory. You're welcome. You're welcome in this place. 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 You are welcome. You're welcome in this place. You're welcome in this place. Welcome in this place. Yes, you are. Welcome in this place. Have your way. 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 Bless the Lord, my soul, and let all that's within me shout out. We shout out. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and let all that's within me shout out. We shout out. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and let all that's within me shout out. We shout out. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and let all that's within me shout out. We shout your praise. We shout your praise. You are worthy. Have your way. Have your way. Have your way. Have your way. Let your presence fall. Have your way. Come, Lord Jesus. Have your way. Something always changes when we bless your name. Something always changes when we bless your name. Something always changes when we bless your name. So we bless your name. Come on. Something always changes when we bless your name. Something always changes when we bless your name. Something always changes when we bless your name. So we bless your name. Bless his name. Something always changes. Oh, something always changes. King of kings, Lord of lords, you are holy and holy. You are holy, King of kings, Lord of lords, I worship you. Worthy. You're worthy of it all. From you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. You're worthy of it all. You're worthy of it all. From you are all things, to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Night and day. it's Christ alone, the cornerstone, the weak made strong in the Savior's love. And through the storm, He is Lord. He's Lord of all. Christ alone, cornerstone, the weak made strong in the Savior's love. And through the storm, He is Lord. He's Lord of all. I'm really excited today. For those of you who don't know, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. I've been waiting on this a long time. I've been excited for the right timing, but TG is going to share his testimony, his story, what God's taken him through. And he's going to cry a lot. And we're going to cry a lot. Isn't that awesome? My kids are like, you always cry when God touches you, Dad. It's like, well, yeah, it's true. Not a bad thing, I guess. No, it's good. I'm just really excited. So TG, yeah, come on up, TG. Just stretch your hands out. I also, if those of you have not heard about it yet, we have a fund for TG. We're helping him get his shoulder surgery. Yeah. So we have over $5,000 that's already been given, but he found a place in Oklahoma that if you pay cash, these doctors, they started a whole new thing where they're just taking cash payments, and it's like a quarter of the cost. Yeah, so we only need to raise like $8 million. Just today. So, no. It's, we don't know totally yet, but we're going to shoot for $40,000 for everything. I'm going to shoot for that. Yeah.
So basically, the surgeon in Oklahoma City has to have a fresh MRI and X-ray. So that's the first step. So that's actually scheduled for March 9th. And then once they have that, they can assess exactly what they have to do. And so I'm under the assumption, based on my doctor, that I will need rotator cuff surgery. And if you don't understand what that is, that's actually all the muscles and ligaments that kind of support the shoulder. And that's actually what started the process of the degeneration in the bone and in the cartilage. So there's no cartilage left in this shoulder at all, and the actual ball and cuff, the ball is worn down and very, very, very much like my knuckle, and so I don't have any lift, and so it has to be healed by God this way or that way, and I'm open to whatever. It's a lot cheaper. Go ahead. But anyway, so that's where we're at right now. And until he has that, the price can't be assessed. But the cool thing is, they have listed prices online. That's the price. That's it. Not $1 more, $1 less. And it's two surgeons who just decided this is ridiculous. They have state-of-the-art equipment. They have the best surgical center. They have great surgeons. I've researched it, and their whole purpose. On one of the guy's testimonies I watched online, he said, "We get asked all the time, how can you do it so cheap?" And he said, I just point the question right back and say, why are you so expensive? And that really is our medical system and insurance system. It's really upside down and backwards. So super glad to find that. My doctor pointed me that way. Animas Surgical here just to do the cartilage and replacement of the titanium ball, or the ball at the end of the ball. was $50,000. And so we're going to be able to get all of it done for much less than that. So,
yeah, so we definitely believe Jesus can heal him instantly, but we're going to still raise funds. And if Jesus heals him before then we'll use those for something else. All right, so, but yeah, I did want you guys to know, if you do online giving, there is a spot on there it says General Fund, Missions, and then we added TG Shoulder. If you want to give to that, or if you want to write a check to Recalibrate Church, you can put in the memo TG Shoulder, and we'll make sure that goes into the account that we've set aside for him to raise money and funds there. There's online giving things that we could do, a GoFundMe and things like that, but those things charge you. So we're like, well, why would we want to pay someone 10%? Only pay God 10%. No. So anyway, that's what we're doing. So I know that over $5,000 has already come in for TG. So yes, thank you, Lord. And it's going to come in. So, but anyway, stretch your hands out. Lord Jesus, we just thank you for what you've done in this man's life. Thank you for what you have done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. And we just thank you for the blessing that he is to our body. And we just look forward to hearing how awesome you are in his life. Amen.
all right. So, I love you too, Willie. You're the bomb. For those of you who know me, if you've ever seen me get behind a microphone here, usually if I'm leading worship and I get behind a microphone, or I'm behind a microphone leading worship, and I start to say something, I feel very empowered by God to speak something specific. And I speak it with confidence and boldness, and sometimes I lose it and begin weeping and crying. And so, but when I get behind a microphone to testify or something, I get a little nervous. So is it nervous in here, or is it just me? Anybody else? I do. I don't know why. And I will tell you in this testimony, you'll see that I didn't used to. And it's kind of silly, and it's something God's breaking off me. As a matter of fact, the first day that we started the sabbatical from having the worship team on the stage and just kind of flowing in whatever God led the leadership to do, that first Sunday was the weirdest thing. I was sitting on the front. We were marching around, and we were just kind of marching. I just remember us marching around. I'm not certain what we were doing other than praying and worshiping, but we were just marching around the sanctuary. I went around a couple of times, and then I sat right on the front row, and the song, So Take Me Back to the Beginning, which is something I've never led in worship, but I've heard the song. And I just started singing that song, and I realized the Lord said, like, he took me back to the beginning that he created in me that I had thrown away out of shame. All right, well, Justin, I'm just going to cry it out in the beginning, and then I can talk. So, but what he had done in my life, I assumed because of what you're about to hear that somehow that wasn't pertinent anymore. And maybe it was a lie. Maybe it really wasn't me, that he wasn't that powerful in my life. And that would never really happen again. And I thought, okay, well, something new will happen. But that morning, God said, no, what I made you to be, what you remember, that was always true. That was always good, and it was always you. I made that in you. So, yeah, so I'm breaking from being nervous and afraid to speak and trying to find boldness and confidence again, and the Lord's definitely doing that. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be standing up here today. So it's been a process. So I'm going to start. I did put tissues in my pocket here. I'm getting over a small cold. It didn't last long, and it didn't do much, but, you get that constant post-nasal drip. It drives you bananas. All right, so forgive me for that. So I literally grew up in church. My dad didn't go to church. My mom took us to church most every Sunday that I can remember. But at almost 10 years old, maybe about 8 years old, my dad started coming. He would come once in a while, but it was just weird. In this whole time, they were both pot smokers. They just smoked a ton of weed. I remember playing with the roach clips and the smell of the burnt weed. Serious, like all the paraphernalia, and you're just 5-year-old, 4-year-old tooting around in the closet. And but he started coming, by this time, they had probably stopped the weed smoking because they started doing random drug tests at my dad's work, and him and my uncle were like, it's not worth it losing our jobs, so they stopped. And but the Lord started getting a hold of his heart, and probably 8 years old, he starts coming off and on. By 10, my dad sold out for the Lord, and I remember the first time ever seeing him cry was at church, and so it's probably where I get it from. So he really did have a soft heart. He didn't cry at home much, but it was the first time I ever saw him cry, and he was testifying about God's love. And that shifted things in our family, in our home. When I was 13, my parents were laid out on the beds just worshiping or reading the word constantly. There was always Christian music going. There was always, so technically, I kind of didn't grow up in a Christian home, if you want to say it that way, and then I did, right? So it wasn't, there was not the sold out factor until I was around 10 years old, and then it was sold out. And so I gave my life to the Lord at 10 years old, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had Jesus, but I received him out of the fear of going to hell, to be honest, based on the messages that were taught, because we went to a very legalistic, small little Baptist church. Looked much like the Church of Christ as far as like the building, and you had the piano over here, and you had the organ over here, and, and the guy up front doing this all day long, so... And that's how you worshiped. And but it was still good. I got things from the Lord, but it's so legalistic, it was unreal. It was also Calvinistic. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a belief from John Calvin that God literally preordains and predestines everything. And that, if he makes you a toilet, tough. And over here, this guy's made a golden trophy, and if you're going to hell, that was his call, And so it was a really mixed up belief. And at 15, that belief straightened up in me, at 15 years old. My parents were solid. That pastor left that church and went to take another church in Oklahoma City, and then our church kind of fell apart, and we had been there forever. And so we went to another church. It was what they call a mission church or a church plant. We loved that church, and the interim pastor that started that church stayed for a couple years. And then he left, and he was just incredible, just a real man of God, and really spoke the truth, spoke the word. It wasn't a Calvinistic belief, so that was kind of nice not be inside of that. But when he left, they brought another pastor on, and my parents and that pastor collided. I mean, I collided with him at 16 years old. It was rough. And he collided with a lot of people, and just out of arrogance, really, and pride, and actually insecurity. He just needed to trust and believe that God had made him who he needed to be and not try to earn that. And by 17, my parents left that church, never to go back to church again. They've never been back in church. And my mom has passed away from cancer, how many years ago? 7 years ago, the day after Christmas. And so my dad's still alive and still doesn't go to church, but he loves the Lord. There's no doubt he loves the Lord, but he has a firm belief that church is a crock. And we had my wife and I had so many conversations trying to encourage them to get back involved with the body of Christ, and it didn't happen. So 17, I'm on my own, and I'm not getting along with this pastor. He even came. We owned a skating rink, and it was a Saturday morning session. And me and my best friend who go to church together, his name was JP, and we're there. And all of a sudden, busting in the doors is the pastor of that church, and he's coming to ream us. And my mom stepped in. That was cool. We have a problem here. So it was awesome. But anyway, so that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, I can't be at this church. Like, he was angry at us for whatever. I don't know what it was, to be honest. So something with youth or something. And so for the first time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go find a church. And so JP and I went to Angus Acres Baptist Church. Angus Acres is the place to be. Farmland. It's true. Farmland is what it used to be. So you youngsters don't have a clue what I'm singing. That's okay. Just out of curiosity, how many actually know that song? There we go. That's what it's. Look around. Okay, I'm not crazy. Now they're over here believe they're like, whoa, he's serious. They really know that. But yeah, Angus Acres was a large farmland, and it got developed into houses. And, as a matter of fact, I grew up there for the first 10 years of my life in that neighborhood. And but anyway, so we go to Angus Acres Baptist Church. I had gone to camp. Our mission church, Keystone Hills Baptist Church, had gone to camp with Angus. Just joined with him. And when I went, Bobby Morford was the was the youth pastor, and the goofiest looking guy you've ever seen in your life, okay? And I mean, like, I would say it if he was sitting here. He had these ears right here, and his nose was long and broken sideways because of all the fighting he did, Golden Globe boxing. So just a goofy looking dude, okay? Best man ever. He actually officiated our wedding, and we were best friends. He was 20 years older than me, but we were absolutely best friends, and I followed him. I remember walking into Anchor Sacred Baptist Church that day, although I'd already gone to camp with them, and we'd had nights of like testimonies after camp there at the facility at the church. Walking in that night, man, I had never walked into the presence of God. Never. And once in my life had I just like walked into a church and just literally like into a wall of the presence of the Lord. And JP and I both were like, do you feel that? Whew. Oh. It was incredible. That whole night was incredible. And we both were like, oh my God, this is revival. Like, we've heard about this. This is a revival. And this happens at a Baptist church? You know, it just freaked us smooth out. And so that was it. I was done. I already knew Bobby. I'd already been involved with some of these people. And so we stayed. And I attended there for 5 total years, which is where I met my wife. And her part of the story, how we met and the first time she saw me, is quite funny. Listen, guys, if you're short, listen to me. Young men, if you're short, don't wear shorts that come all the way past your knee and about mid-shin here with vertical stripes. Okay? Because you look like a midget. And that's what she saw first time she saw me walking across the parking lot, because her sister had come to church the week before she had arrived in Tulsa. And she was like, oh, you got to come. This guy, TG, leads worship. And it's just incredible because at that time, our students were just getting up, sitting on a chair, weeping, snotting everywhere, and confessing sin. And that's revival. They were repenting, praying for, I mean, without fail, every I don't care if you liked them or you didn't, every student was coming up and confessing sin. The whole bunch of them would come back out of their chairs, rush up and pray over them, and then they'd go sit down. And the next person would come up, they'd all rush up and pray, and they'd go sit down. And it was just all night. My fingers would just be sore from playing the guitar through the whole thing. And so her sister had come the week before, knew it was revival, told her about it, and then she showed up. And Daisha had just gotten off of a mission term in Africa, and she was there 5 months, supposed to be there 9 months. And so 6 months? Okay. I don't know why I say anything like that. I don't know. She should be like almost like co-pilot over here with another microphone. And so she'll say to you that, you know, that God led her to me through Africa, and that's how she feels, because she went to finish her mission term with the missions organization in Tulsa as an intern, as an intern. And so that's how we met. And so 4 months, best friends. Am I jumping way ahead too fast? Is this good? Okay. 4 months, we just became best friends. Now, keep in mind, a funny part of the story here is that there's 100 kids in our youth ministry, okay, and I'm leading worship every week for 5 years there. And so I know every face, but there's 2 new ones over here. And they're both attractive. And I'm like, who's that? I didn't mean to look at you, Sean, sorry. That was weird. That was weird. It felt weird up here, I'm not sure. So I see both these girls, and so afterwards, naturally, we're going to get acquainted. You know, we're going to talk. Everybody's sticking around. Yeah, of course, you know. Because, you know, out of the whole 100, there's probably like 6 or 7 college students who were helped in the youth ministry and leaders. And so anyway, we are talking up front, and then we're like, hey, let's go eat. So we go to Mazzio's, and I remember my wife in the back, who was not my wife then, but my wife was in the back seat, and she goes, we were talking about somebody who walked away from the Lord or something, and she goes, oh, my heart hurts. And she fell over. And I literally was like, you okay? Are you okay? Like, I thought she was being like, she's having a heart attack. And so first time I'd seen somebody be so passionate, like she was so sincere, like, oh, my heart hurts. And she fell over in the seat. I'm like, what? You're not joking? Like, your heart hurts for this person? So I just saw so much. And I will never forget the hairdo that she had. Man, that was awesome. She only did that one more time in our marriage, like 5 years later. And I felt like I fell in love with her all over again. It's like same haircut. I called it a Q-tip hairdo, but it was really cute. But And so we get married in, I type this on your phone all the time because it's your passcode, and I just blanked. 20, what? No, what year was it? 97. Good Lord. I have to do it on our phone, the passcode. Anyway, so we get married in 97, and, Yeah, no. 97 is only 2 of the 6 numbers, so tough. Oh, wait, somebody else might know the month and day. So anyway, but we are best friends for 4 months, and we did not date. We didn't hold hands. We didn't snuggle. We didn't kiss. We didn't do nothing. Because all we had talked about is, who do you want to marry? I don't know. I want to marry this kind of person. Who do you want to marry? Well, I want to marry this kind of person. And when she said, I want to marry my best friend, I was like, dang, that's a standard, you know? And I don't know that I put myself in that place, but I thought, man, what a standard. Like, I want to marry my best friend. I never really thought about it. I'm like, I want to marry somebody who's hot, cool, you know, all that good stuff. And so for 4 months, we just hang out. And then my youth pastor's like, you gonna let her go? You gonna get her? Like, he's like, you're supposed to marry Daisha. I'm like, I know. So I got too many voices going on inside my head. I don't need yours. And so I set up this really, what I thought was awesome dinner. The food was probably horrible, but I made a steak and mashed potatoes, and then I bought this cheesecake because we both talked about loving cheesecake, which is actually what our cake was at our wedding. But I bought this cheesecake, and I bought a bride and groom topper. And I had the little tiny engagement diamond ring, and I put it on this little rose that was between like this, and there was a little rose where they held it together. And I stuck it on there. And I said, the reason we were going to have this date is because she was leaving the next day, actually, our parents were coming the next day to come pick her up. So a couple days we had after that. But the week prior, she's like, I'm going to take you on a date. And I'm like, what? We can have a date. I know we'd never dated, but you were joking. She goes, so, yeah, we'd never done anything by ourselves. And so we go to Woodland Park, and she does this whole picnic. I broke her finger with a Nerf football somehow. I just threw it, that's all. But it didn't break, but it was severely injured. My mom had to doctor it up, and that's when my mom met her. I was like, here, let's go to my mom's house. But anyway, it was just a cool thing. And so I told her that next week, I said, I'm going to outdo you. And that was my excuse to get her to this event. And so we go through the whole night. I got these lights hung from the great trellis, and I mean, it was romantic. I mean, if she didn't know what was happening, then she was oblivious. But so we get through dinner. And you knew. You had to know. No, she didn't. She really thought I was just trying to outdo her. So I get all through dinner, and then I said, okay, I've got dessert, but you have to close your eyes. It's a surprise. And so come on. So I go in and get the cake, and I'm sliding the sliding glass door. I'm like, hey, close your eyes. She goes, okay, they're closed. She got her hand. So I set the cake down, and then I play a song on a tape recorder. Y'all know what a tape recorder is? That's really cool. It goes like this before the song. And so I play the song, and it's a song by Michael English called Love Moves in Mysterious Ways. And so here it starts, and then I said, okay, open your eyes. And I'm already on my one knee. And she goes, no, heck no. I bawled when she walked down the aisle. It was so bad. I was singing a song, and none of it came out. It was bad. Huh? Yeah. Oh, Sean, look at me. There we go. Let's make it awkward. But I said, Daisha, will you marry me? I'm sure I said something else, but you know what I'm asking. So, but when she opened her eyes, she was like this. She was like this. So what she did, just right back over, and tears start streaming out because she saw the ring, and of course I'm on my knee. I'm sure she, And so anyway, that's how we got engaged. Just a fun story. She said yes immediately. She's like, I don't know, you're awfully short. If you ever wear those striped shorts again. But she said yes. And so we've been married 25 years. And super proud of it. You know, when you get married, that number 25 looks like it is. Seriously, like, yeah, there you go. Stop. Who'd have thought this is how the pieces fit? You and I, see, I can't do that. Shouldn't even try making sense of it. There you go. Just play this part. This is good. Turn it up. Turn it up. I forgot how we ever came this far. Yeah. This is the good one here. So blame it on my heart. Oh. Yeah. I sang this to her at the wedding. I got through it that time. That was good. Love moves in mysterious ways. It's always so surprising when love appears over the horizon. You're so cheesy, Justin. And he says, still it's a mystery how you ever came to me, which only proves that love moves in mysterious ways. So I heard that song 2 years before I met her, and I'm like, that is my song for my wife. Didn't know who it was. So, all right, that's a whole sidebar, but it's a fun one. So married 25 years. When we got married, 6 months after we were married, we were working at Mardell Christian Bookstore when we got married. I hated that job. I literally would face things in my sleep all night long. I couldn't sleep. I was struggling with insomnia so bad. And I was just in that part of sleep where literally I was like straightening glue bottles and pencils all night long and going back to the same ones. Oh my goodness, it was horrible. I was so miserable. It's not a job for me. It was torture. I was an office supply. We had more products than any other department. So anyway, it's just a disaster. So we both worked there. 6 months into our marriage, we get a call from a little Baptist church in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, which is not far from Angus Acres Baptist Church. And this was Trinity Baptist Church, and they needed a youth pastor. And I had done some ministry for that youth before, for that pastor. And we got along. We liked each other, he and I. And but we were there not very long when I realized this is not a good situation. We get in staff meetings, and he's just like cussing like a sailor. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I'm like, why do you feel so comfortable in here with your staff to just say all kinds of cuss words? And as a youth pastor, I'm like, I'm trying to be holy, man. I'm trying to be righteous. I got to get my kids to see it, you know? So I'm excited. It's my first time to be a youth pastor, man. I want to have the same impact on their lives as Bobby had on mine. And my wife and I both are just feeling very uncomfortable. And then, it wasn't with anybody here, sorry. We were singing songs, out of the Baptist hymnal, the red and the blue Baptist hymnal. And my favorite was in the blue Baptist hymnal, God of earth and outer space. And so, listen, I joke, you couldn't have convinced me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that, that they weren't as right as the day is long. And all this other stuff is nonsense. You can't convince me today that what happens here is nonsense. If that's how you feel, I pray for you, because you need deliverance and freedom in Jesus and the Spirit of God just to wreck you. And anyway, but at that time, you couldn't have convinced me that they weren't completely right, and charismatic behavior was just nonsense. But yeah, so I wanted to really do a great job. Here I'm with this pastor, and I feel like my standards, our standards are like up here, and we're being led by standards that are down here. And it wasn't just the cussing. It was several things. I mean, he's looking at me, he's like, literally looks at me and goes, he said, you and I, he said, if you do that, we're going to butt heads. That's how he said it to me. I'm like, I'm a young, how old was I? 24, 25 maybe? And I'm like, I'm not confrontational ever in that way. And it just freaked me smooth out. So in a year, we were like, okay, it's time to go. It was just getting bad. And so we resigned. And at that point, we were pregnant with Ethan. She was pregnant with, I love when we say that we were pregnant. She was pregnant with Ethan. I was supporting. And so that was the first church, and that hurt. It wasn't a complete disaster. And then we went to Shiloh Church, which was more non-denominational, but still Baptist kind of core in the pastor. And We were there 6 months when all hell broke loose. A bunch of pornography was found on the church's computer and the cookie files, and it's a whole, I could write a book on it, and the details will be like a story, but I'm not going to go there. But the pastor, it was in his personal office at home, but he denied everything, and they were like, okay, well then you have 3 sons, and the pastor was going through a divorce at the time, which was tough in and of itself, and he was very charismatic in his personality and very believable, and you wanted to hear him. You wanted to hear what he had to say. And so we just trusted through that time, but it just got so hairy. And long story short, he would not confront his kids about it, so it just left it all up in the air. I remember our worship pastor going, so if your son had a heroin addiction, you're just going to leave it alone? You're not going to confront him? What's the difference? It's pornography. This is a life destroyer. And he would not do it. And he'd blame, they're already upset with their mom leaving. We don't care. These kids are going to go to hell. This is not okay. They need redemption. They need salvation. And so I remember we were in a staff meeting over all this. And the pastor's dad, Burl, big old man. And he just got so frustrated at one point. He goes, what do you want us to do? Tar and feather them and run them up and down Main Street? And that was in the staff meeting. I'm like, oh, gosh, I can't do this. So it was unreal. We're going to be duking it out in a minute. So still young and just going, I've never seen this in church ministry and church staff. It wasn't this way when I was growing up. There's some things, but goodness gracious. And I say this, if you love your church, don't go on staff at it, okay? Just don't. And I do say it jokingly, but what happens behind closed doors in the leadership and in the staff can be pretty sticky sometimes. It really can. And then even Angus Acres Baptist Church, several years later, I'm on staff there full time as the worship pastor. And dear Lord, what I didn't see then, I saw at that point being on staff. And so just kind of having to work through a lot of stuff that we didn't know how to work through. And pain. If I did write a book, you would see it all. A lot of pain. I don't know if you've seen A Knight's Tale, but that little dude, he says, pain, lots of pain. And so it was a lot of pain. And so so we left Shiloh and then went to Angus. I went on as an interim worship pastor because the worship pastor was there forever, left. Shocking. Couldn't believe he left. And I'm like, yes, I love Angus Acres Baptist Church. That's my church, man. And so I go on staff there, and I take my guitar and bring something they had never experienced, to be honest. Now, the only time they'd experienced anything close to it is when I would fill in for the worship pastor who was there. And he was just next to this, okay, and actually did it sometimes, but was trying to bring that progressive contemporary sound, and he was doing a good job, and I respected him entirely. Scott Meeks, great guy. But the reality was when he would lead, he could only go so far not being a musician, but he did an incredible job of taking a choir, a band, which had never been there before. Like when I first went to Angus, there was no band. And all of a sudden now we have a band. The pastor was playing drums. It was freaking awesome. He would do a great job. Well, I would take that band. I'm like, we're taking it up a notch. And I would go there, and there would be celebration and shouting at the end of songs. That never happened in that church. And so when I came as interim, I'm like, I was so excited. There's probably 500 people in this church. The sanctuary is about double this size or maybe a third bigger, but it was just kind of like this in this little semicircle. Man, this was a dream come true. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm going to go on staff at this church that I love so much. So I go on staff, start leading worship as an interim, and I'm getting all of the good notes and all the good sounds, and everybody's saying, oh, we love it. It's so amazing. We love it when you lead worship. Da, da, da. I'm getting that from everybody. So here comes the moment where the pastor says, hey, we want to hire you. And so they vote on me. I get like a 98% vote. I'm now full-time at Angus Acres Baptist Church as a worship pastor. 2 years into it, I'm like, get me out of here. It just things happen. And it's not, you can always go them and them and them, but I always say, if you got one finger pointing that, you got 3 pointing back at you. It's a combined effort that causes pain oftentimes. It really is. And so, but it wasn't working. And I literally got sat down by the reason we left. I got sat down by the pastor after 2 years. Let me go back just a second. When I was interim, at the end of a song, if it was a trash can ending, which musicians understand, but what that is like, we're that's a trash can ending, all right? It's like at the end, you just throw it all in the trash and just go nuts, okay? And I was doing that, and they were loving it. And then all of a sudden, 2 years into being on staff, he tells me in a letter, he wrote it all in a letter, several details, and one of them was, stop all the fanfare at the end of the songs. And I'm like, who's cutting that check? Like, who's writing that big fat check to you to make you say that to me after all this time? That's how I felt. You know, who's threatening to withdraw their funds? Because you were with me doing these trash can endings for 2 straight years. This doesn't make sense. Fanfare? Get rid of the celebration of Jesus at the end of a song where we're worshiping him? Are you kidding me? And I just looked at him after reading the letter right in front of him in his office, and I said, can I have a couple weeks to mull over? He said, sure, absolutely. He's the sweetest man. He is a sweet man. And today I still honor him and I respect him because I learned so much from him. I don't know what happened at that time. And you know, when you're speaking things like this and it's recorded and going to be on YouTube, it's the truth for me. So I could get a phone call from him next week. I don't care. We'll talk about it. We tried to talk about it then. So, but yeah, it was a problem for me. And after reading that letter over and over and mulling over, I'm like, babe, I can't back up. We can't back up from what God has called us to do and called us to be. I can't reverse. That doesn't make sense. I know God has called me to be this kind of worship leader, period. And I will not go back and be Scott Meeks. I'm not doing it. And so that's what, we just prayed and we felt strongly that we're done. And so we left Angus. And from there, we started a church with some friends. And John McDonald and another, I can't think of his name right now, but Michael. Yeah, Michael, anyway, it doesn't matter. But they wanted to start a church and co-pastor, and they asked me to be the worship pastor. And I looked straight at him and I said, and John was saying, man, I want to marry this thing. And I looked at him and I said, I don't. I'll be here with you. We can go, but I'm not marrying it, buddy. And he was okay with that at the time. And we were there, Freedom Church, about a year, and we grew so fast, it was unreal. It was so fun. But life for me now, I think, see what had happened. Let me just drop in right here. This is the problem when we allow anger to set in. Because it had, but I didn't even notice it. And you know when I noticed it? We were running Freedom Church. I felt miserable. Jobs weren't coming in. I was trying to do work on my own for the first time in construction. And I was just stressing about finances. And I was feeling this like, here's the feeling. God, I'm doing all this for you. You asked me to do it. I have subjected myself. I have not once said no. I've done everything you've asked me to do. Why is it like this? And that's how I felt. And that feeling comes back still. It's a fight that you learn that the enemy wants to deceive you and lie to you and tell you that somehow it's God's fault, which is a crock of poo. What's your word? Scubala? That's fun to say. Scubala. It's a crock. And it's a lie. But you know, when Satan wants to dive in, you know, it says that Satan goes around like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. The truth is he doesn't roar. Like if I hear a roaring lion, I'm not going to it, I'm going that way, right? Oftentimes it's so subtle. It's so quiet. He doesn't jump out of the closet and go, boom! That's not how he functions. He sneaks in. When we were here at the beginning, I'm going to jump forward a little bit. We were going to counseling, Daisha and I, here in Durango, and there was a counselor that told me, she said, you have to stop the enemy at the threshold of the mind. Now, if you're in construction, you understand what a threshold is, and if you're not in construction, you may understand, but some of you are going, what's a threshold? I've heard that word before. It's a couple of definitions, but one is, it's that piece of metal or that portion between the jamb of the door that separates the outside from the inside. And if you, see, Satan actually can't get past the threshold unless you unlock the door and open it, right? And what's crazy about Satan is he gives a nice little subtle knock, and any average Joe here is like, okay, somebody's knocking on my door, I want to see who it is, you're trusting, you open the door, and here comes the home invasion, right? When somebody's going to invade a home, they knock. You open the door. What do? Do you open it all the way? You like crack it open to see who opens it. They do. They bust through, okay? But you cracked it open. And see, Satan takes advantage of you the same way in your mind. And it's a constant thing that I think we'll deal with till the day we die. But what's good is we learn his tactics and go, oh, there's the truth. I've been buying into a lie. I partner with a lie. And I partnered with a lie of anger and didn't even know it. He was subtly knocking, and I was listening for the knock. And then I opened the door, and he pretty much barged through. And I'll show you that point in a minute. So I was partnering with a lie. I was angry, didn't know I was angry. And we're running this Freedom Church. I'm leading worship every Sunday. It's going well. I'm enjoying it very much, but I'm feeling turmoil in my spirit, in my heart. Like I'm just not okay. Didn't know why. I thought, this too shall pass. And I'm working on my car in the AutoZone parking lot. And I was getting really pissed off. And I almost threw the wrench through the windshield. I had a meltdown like I'd never had before. A complete meltdown. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, I got to do something different. Like that night, I'm like, that's it. And the different was, at that time, Hiram and Sharon, they ran a construction company, and he needed a superintendent. And I went, oh, that's it. We're moving to Aztec. We're going to go to Aztec. I'm going to be a superintendent. He's going on staff with CMA full time, and we'll run his company for a couple of years and shut the business down, and had a few projects left to do. So that's where we went at that point. That lasted about a year. There was some turmoil while we were here. And then we get a call from Jeremy and Nikki, Jeremy was our worship pastor at the Shiloh Church, where the pastor and the computer and the pornography. He had moved to Arkansas to a church called Grace Connection. So we go to Grace Connection as youth pastors, okay? Wow. I don't know. You gotta go back and count them. You can count them. And so then we go to Grace Connection, but they fly us over there, and we're like, this is awesome. It's a new church plant, okay, about 4 years old. They got a nice building already that they're functioning in. The youth has already grown. We're like, this is awesome. Perfect. We've had a nice sabbatical, a nice rest from full-time ministry. It's time to get back in. So it flies there. It was great. The pastor was wonderful. It all just made sense. But there were actually 3 pastors, though. So for me, it was the 3-headed monster by the end of it. But there were 3 pastors, the equal co-pastors, which actually was not reality whatsoever. They knew it. Everybody knew it. It was very obvious who was running the show. But the guy that was running the show, I was like, we're going to be buds, man. This is great. He's about 7,000 feet tall, big old dude. And but yeah, I just thought this is wonderful. And I get there when we moved from Aztec to Little Rock, Arkansas, take our family across the country again. He didn't speak to me the first Sunday at all. It was weird. And then the only thing he said to me, because Jeremy, my friend, who's a worship pastor, asked me to go back to the soundboard that morning and fix something. So I go back there to do it, and I hear the pastor come behind me, and he's at the door of the sound room, and he's asking Mason, who's the other pastor. He goes, "What's he doing?" And he said, "Oh, he's tweaking out." He goes, "Not on Sunday morning." I just hear it behind me. My face just went, just embarrassment, shock, all of it. So that was my first Sunday there, and I was so upset. I came out of there and was marching down the hall, and Dacia's coming the opposite way. She's looking at me, she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." So she pulls me into the room. She's praying for me. I'm like, I'm just in panic, y'all. I'm like, I can't do this again. I can't do this again. I cannot do this again. And it really felt that painful. Like I was having a panic attack. I'm like, are you kidding? We moved across the country for this crap? So, sorry for that word. Wait, you said it before. I'm good. Scuba. So anyway, I throw that off, and I get back on the drums, and we play, and we do our thing, and not a word that day. I went home, and I called Jeremy, and I said, I'm done. First Sunday, I said, I'm packing up and getting a U-Haul. I'm out. I'm going back to Tulsa. This is BS. I was so mad. And I'm like, how in the world, God, could this be the case? Is this guy a complete fraud? So we stay there for 3.5 years, which was 3.5 years too long. It really was, because I actually dug my heels in. I'm like, nope. I'm not getting beat out this time. And I did. I dug my heels in hard, and it hurt her tremendously. So guys, when you're doing ministry and you're married, your whole family is in it with you. Your whole family, every kid you have, they're all in it with you. And so the pain doesn't just get felt by you because you're the one carrying the title. That's a bunch of bunk. Anyway, so while we were there, my wife, this was probably, I don't know when it transpired, but probably within the first year. This pastor was very derogatory towards my wife, her having any kind of say whatsoever, which I don't agree with, period. And I remember being in a staff meeting one time and him slamming his hands down on the desk and standing up so fast on the conference table because he was arguing with these other two pastors. And I'm just seeing this dynamic. It's no good, it's toxic. And he says, it was something about it's his way, or if you think that I'm not the one that calls the shots, and he just stands up. And, it's just it's not even needed. I mean, you can have a disagreement, but you can discuss those things. It's not needed. So that was that church. So we finally leave that church, and I'm probably bypassing great details, but who cares? At this point, I'm like, we both, I think, felt like we're never doing this again. We probably said it. We moved back to Tulsa, and we go to Destiny Church in Broken Arrow, and it was such a place of healing. That pastor called it a soft place to land, and I would say that's accurate. It was a soft place to land. And they ministered to a lot of people like us on a regular basis. There's about 2,000 people at this church. And I got involved in the worship team, and I loved it. And they would use me often to lead when the worship pastor was gone. And this worship pastor was awesome. He was younger than me, Tony Chavez. And he was the worship leader for that pastor when that pastor was a youth pastor at another church in town, okay? So they've been connected kind of like Bobby and I were for a long time. And so I love this church. And we were there for quite a while. And then I was leading worship for the youth on Thursday night. And you talk about a hopping setup, man. Probably 500 kids, and it's just banging, okay? It's awesome. But I had no idea this pastor from the River Church, who I'd never even heard of, which is another 4-year-old church plant, had come to hear me lead worship that night because he was looking for a worship pastor. And so Tony then tells me afterwards, hey, I want you to meet Tom Penland. He's the pastor of the River Church. We were there 6 months when I called him and had a meeting with him. And we had dinner, and my wife had shared with me what his wife had shared with her in confidence. And I just said, hey, Tom, I'm really concerned. And I said, your wife is miserable based on what she told my wife. And in essence, he basically said, my wife wouldn't have told your wife that. There's no way your wife's lying. And I just told him, I said, there's no way my wife can make that up, to be honest with you. That's impossible. And so she just said, I wish Tom had never started this church. He's no longer a father to the boys. We never see him. I mean, just everything you can look at, go big red flashing lights, right? And he said, he goes, you know what? It just sounds like you're just worried about you and yours. And I said to him, at this point, you've been through enough crap. I spoke up. I said, if you don't think I'm not worried about me and mine, you're freaking nuts. I said, but I'm going to trust you and honor you as my pastor. And I said, I'm not trying to run this show, Tom. And if you think this isn't happening, then fine. I'm going to trust what you're saying. I would challenge you to challenge your wife, and you guys talk. But I'm going to trust you. But I'm not going down with this ship. And I just told him that. I won't. I'm not going down with this ship. We left on good terms. It wasn't something bad. He and I had already built a relationship that we had kind of really be honest with each other. Long story short, she left to go visit her mom without the kids. And she was gone. And she was gone the next week. And she was gone the next week. And he was excusing it away at the pulpit. And we all knew. And the associate pastor one night, this was getting frustrating. And we were all frustrated. And Gabe finally got the truth out of him. And Gabe, the associate, they were best friends from college. Best friends for years. And the friendship was over. Because Gabe basically said to him, he called me, he said, TG, if I'd have had a gun on me, I swear I'd have pulled the trigger and shot him in the head. That's what he said. I said, type your resignation letter right now. Like, type it now and be done. And about 2 weeks later, Tom finally came forward and said his wife had left him and it was over and she wasn't coming back. And so that church fell apart in about the next 3 weeks. There's a lot more details to that too, where my wife will tell you that I held everything together. Probably I did. Nobody really knew what to do in the leadership and the staff and the elders. Just nobody wanted to step up to the plate. So we decided to close the church. And that was 8 months into this thing. And I'm like, now I go back to Destiny, and here's where it shifts, guys. I go back to Destiny Church, and because we knew they loved us. We invited a lot of people to listen. Come on, Mike Goolsbay is just such a father's heart, heart of love. And so we go back to Destiny, and we were there a couple of weeks, and there was other families with us, and they were like, thank you so much for inviting us here. They didn't know what to do. I mean, they were just shocked. Suddenly the church was done. They literally walked in one day and were like, we're done. Can you imagine that here? Like, just try to, I'm not saying, by all means, I'm not saying for that to happen, but just try to, like, this many people at least. And you walk in, and the sound system's not set up. There's no chairs set up. We met in a cafeteria. And they're all going, what's going on? I'm like, just come on in, just family day today. Probably just enough chairs for everybody to sit, I'm sure. But I mean, like, it wasn't normal. And so they were thankful to go back to Destiny with us. I'm there probably about maybe a month. And some of those families had moved on at that point. And I remember coming to church that morning and feeling as numb as I could ever feel. And I sat down expecting the band to come out and start leading worship, and they did. And every time he comes out, he's always, stand with us, let's worship. And I did this. This is what I did. I was reluctant. Daisha stepped before me. Hey, thanks, Willie. I feel really loved by you. Sorry, Sean, you got bought out. And so I did this. Daisha stood up, and the music takes off, and I went like this. And not a thought before this, I promise. I went like this. I went... I had let so much hate come into my heart and so much anger. And I lied to myself, and I partnered with that lie. And I stood up, and I was going to stand up and start worshiping. And I got halfway up and went, nope, I'm done. And I flipped God off, and I just dove into the anger at him. I started drinking, smoking cigarettes, started with Black and Milds, thought that was, pipe tobacco, come on. My dad smoked pipe, that's innocent enough. Lying to my wife, going to the casino. I had met, when I was 15 years old, I recorded my first song, and Louis Drapp is one of the most godly men that I know, a man of integrity. And he is who I took guitar lessons from for 6 months. When I was 13, that's the only lessons I took, but he was such a good teacher, he taught me how to teach myself. And we still are connected today. And his brother, Daniel Drapp, played bass guitar on that first recording at 15 years old. And I never saw Daniel again until in this time where I was, before I started the drinking and everything else, but I was in a bad space. I get a call from Louis, he says, hey, Daniel got released from prison about 2 months ago, and he's working at Sonic and driving his bike 20 miles to get there. And he said, would you be willing to give him a job? He's a great carpenter. I said, sure, because my company was going and doing well. And so he comes on board, and so this might have been before I just flipped God off, to be honest, because he worked for me 2 years, so it was. But we would sing worship songs because when he was in prison, he had become the worship leader of the chapel services and was just on fire for God again because he knew the Lord before he went to prison. He went to prison for a drug deal that went bad, and he shot somebody and killed him. But he got shot 6 times, and it was self-defense. But because it was a drug deal, that's why he went to prison. And so 7 years in prison, he and I became best friends. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Daniel would take a bullet for me and my wife and my kids. We would sing in open rooms, finishing drywall, and the echoes going. He could sing so good. And we'd harmonize and be singing worship songs. That's what we did. And so this was prior to me getting so angry. And but he was kind of, he'd been out of prison for only a couple of years, for a couple of months at that time. But as time went on, we both were just sliding down this thing, and it was bad. And we're just feeding each other. And he's feeding me negative thoughts about even my wife and women. Women are just, just the bitterness in his heart. And so the respect for my wife was going downhill, like just in the tank. And so by the time I was ready to flip God off and be done, I just dove like head first, and so did he. Now, I knew he was a meth user prior. I didn't know what meth looked like. I didn't know what weed looked like. I'm going to be honest. Even though I saw it as a kid, I saw the burnt and the chunks and what they call Reggie. It's like junk. That was what my parents smoked. Today, it's very different. I didn't have a clue. I really didn't. I would smell sometimes and try to remember, was that what I used to smell when I was a kid? What does weed smell like? I smell a pile of weeds burning and go, that's weird. That reminds me of weed. But I didn't know. I couldn't have pointed any of it out to you at this point. I'm 36 years old. So we're doing the casino thing. I'm staying out late, lying to my wife, telling her we're working late. And he and I all the time, it's just stupid behavior. And there was a job I had to get done for a client of mine. And they had a tenant moving in, and I had to get it done quick. I mean, we were behind schedule. This wasn't abnormal for me to work nearly all night long. I just would work. You probably had days like that where you're just like, you can push through 16, 18 hours just because you have to. So I said, Daniel, please, I need you to help me out. Can you come with me on this job? We've got to knock this out. Renters are coming in 2 days. So bring your pillow. Let's get this done. So we do, and we break away at midnight, and he's like, hey, let's get some beer. All right, so we go get a 6-pack, not a 12, just a 6, because I didn't really like to drink beer much. And then when we're leaving the store, he goes, let's go to the casino, boss. That's how he would say it. Let's go to the casino. I said, no. I had already put my foot down because every Friday, he would take $900 that I just paid him, and he'd come back to me in 2 hours and say, borrow me $100, boss. That's what he'd say. And I finally just put my foot down. I'm like, I can't do that. I know. I can't do it. So that night I said, nope, we're not. He goes, come on, just $20. I said, okay, you're locking your wallet in that glove box right there, and you're taking $20 in. You are not spending any more. We go in, we sit down right next to this girl. I don't know if it's an agenda, but he saw it. I didn't. She was tweaking. He's a former meth user. And he's like, hey, she needs a job. Can we pay her? And I'm like, can you paint? She's like, yeah. I'm like, $10 an hour? She's like, yeah, I can do it. I said, seriously. And she looked just straight. Yep, I sure can. Okay, let's go. So she comes back with us. She's painting. They're talking. I have no clue what they're talking about. He's getting drunk by this time, being stupid. And then he asked me, hey, boss, can you drive us to go pick up some meth? Because she's a user. And I don't know what in the world. By the time you put your dukes down this far, you just lost grip. So I said, sure. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what am I doing? Oh, I can't believe I'm going to do a drug deal. And so we drive and we get the drugs, and we come back, and he looks at me and he goes like this. Students, listen to me. Okay. How many times have you heard, just say no? You heard that? Right? Okay. I heard it all my life. And at 36, somehow that phrase went out of my brain. I went stupid. And he looked at me, he goes, he's getting something ready to smoke it up in, and he said, and I'm exhausted. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm already hallucinating from being tired. He goes, boss, you want to try? And I looked at him and said this. Let me think about it. What? Just say no. It's real simple. It's actually less words. No. And I said, let me think about it. And then I asked him, I said, what am I going to feel? What's going to happen? And he explains it, and I'm like, can't hurt anything. Everything's so screwed up anyway. May as well just go for it. That's what I did in my brain. And I did. And I started using meth. You start, I'm not going to go there. It's a horrendous, hideous, hellacious, disgustingly demonic path. And I should have looked at you, Sean. God. You know what? The pain that you cause everybody around you when you live in sin, like you get hurt. I understand that you hurt from what you go through, but the pain that you cause everybody around you when you live in sin, I'm not talking about you fall, you make a mistake, but when you just buy into it, you buy into the lie and you just keep going. The way I felt was by the time it got a hold of me and she found out, and it was 8 months later, you realize it's the self-talk. You're a piece of dirt. You're a piece of trash. You're worthless. Go to hell. You go to hell. I mean, it'll cause you pain, but when you see what you just did to everybody around you, so just say no, okay? It's real simple. I love the fact that Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose, because that means it doesn't matter what happens. There's a space on the other side. If you repent and you join and partner with God's will for your life, there's a space on the other side that brings redemption and healing. And so if you hear nothing else today, know this, that if you're struggling in your heart with a sin or repentance needs to be quick, and it needs to be now. And redemption comes immediately. You guys have heard some of this stuff even from me when I'm leading worship, and it's because it's so dear to my heart. But when you think about the prodigal son, when he turned his face back to his father, he was a long way off. You may feel like you are a long way off. You may feel like the God is galaxies away and it's impossible to get back to the heart of God. But the prodigal son turned back towards his father, and when he was a long way off, the father ran to him. Redemption was immediate. And I've said this before, just this picture. You got your back to God. He's not waiting actually for you to face him. He's waiting for this right here. That's it. Did you see that? Watch again. Faith takes action. Getting back to the heart of the Father and finding redemption takes action. And all he's looking for is just an action. That's it. Just a moment. And he's ready for redemption for you. But you know what the lie is that we buy into? That we think is true? That the enemy constantly is whispering in our ear? He doesn't love you. You're not enough. You're not going to be able to minister again. God doesn't want a relationship with you. You're disgusting. You're a meth user. That passion right there, I'm angry. But do you know what I'm angry at? The lies of the enemy and the enemy. Because now when I see people going through what I've gone through, I get indignant. It makes me so mad, but in such a loving, passionate way, because my heart bleeds for those guys. My heart bleeds for people who are going through living life under hell's lie. And we don't have to. Will we struggle? Sure. Will we fall? Sure. Okay, that's going to happen. But I'm not hated by my father. I was loved the whole time. It never stopped. God's love is pure, it's holy, and it's always there. It never changes. Even when I say, oh, shoot, I screwed up, the self-talk does happen. But I love that you've spoken on that, because that's shifted things inside of me. I'm like, I am not going to partner with that. I'm not a piece of crap. That's ridiculous. Why would I say that about myself? I am the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. If I'm the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus, then why in the world am I living like a pauper? Or a pauper son? Why am I living like God's grace is not on my life? It is. So to move forward from that point, there was about 8 months into using meth and all kinds of stuff that you can totally imagine. Daisha found out, and she moved the kids here. And that's how we're here. And I checked into, Daisha basically told me, she said, listen, if this is gonna work, you're gonna get help. And it's funny, because for a couple of days I thought, yeah, whatever, you know. And then I went, yeah, this is stupid. And by this time, Daniel had already killed himself. I remember waking up to a bunch of texts one day and calls, and I knew something like that. Either he was back in prison or he shot himself. Because 2 weeks before he shot himself, he was trying to kill himself, and I was preaching at him. And I said, Daniel, dude, if you kill yourself, you got 5 kids. You haven't even seen all your grandkids yet. You don't get to see all that part. Dude, whatever's going on right now is not bad enough for that. But apparently for him it was. He shot himself in the heart. And 2 months, well, immediately, he was always shooting up. I wasn't. I was snorting or smoking. And 2 months after that, I was shooting up like crazy. Not 2 months after, the whole next 2 months. And I went stupid. I mean, I literally called a nurse friend of mine. I said, get your needles and get over here. I was pissed off at him for leaving me in this lurch, in this space. I never did anything without him. He was like a father in it, if you could have that. And so I started shooting up, and that's when I just went so stupid. It wasn't even funny. Like, that is so disastrous for your health. And then she found out. So I checked into a rehab, and I was there for 3 months. At this point, it was a 6-month sober living facility, Christian facility, awesome place. Kevin Day is the director there, still going strong. And I remember being there 3 months, and at first I'm like, oh my God, I just want to kill myself. Like, I don't belong here. This is stupid. And after 3 months, I'm like, oh, I love it here. I'm ministering to all these guys. And man, you're in the Word every day. I mean, every day you're engulfed in the Word. It's a program. You have to follow the system. Some guys would bail in 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months. But I was like, nope, not me. I'm here, man. Let's do this. And I loved those guys. By the time I left, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay and minister to those guys. But about 3 months into it, I'm back at the back of my truck, and I was probably cleaning out my truck, something like that. And I'm just talking to myself out loud and talking with the Lord, and frustrated at the fact that I got 3 months left. What am I supposed to do after this? Stay in Tulsa? Go to Durango? I love Tulsa. I grew up there, And so Kevin walks over and he goes, what are you doing? I was like, I was cleaning my truck. He goes, what are you doing? Because he could see me talking to myself. I said, I'm just praying, trying to figure out what the crap I'm supposed to do when I leave here. And he said, well, you asked the Lord? And I just want to go, seriously? I'm like, yes. And he goes, okay, ask him again. So he walks away, and I'm like, Lord, what am I supposed to do when I leave here? And you do hear the Lord's voice, man. He will speak to you. This was a good one. I'm like, Lord, what am I supposed to do when I leave here? There's the question. And he said, do you love your wife? I said, yes. Do you love your kids? Yes. It was so quick. I'm answering. The question comes in your brain for a reason. And I didn't drum it up. It's just bam, bam. I said, yes, yes. He goes, then go get them. Then go get them. Chase them. And I went, done. I came to Durango when I graduated. And there's been a year after I was here, I had a relapse. Exactly a year, almost to the date of graduating, I had a relapse. And it was very painful. My kids, I thought I'd really injured myself. We lived north in the valley, and I called 911 on myself. Didn't tell them where I was at, and she hangs the phone up, and I hang it up. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. And so then the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's the 911 operator again. And she's just trying to triangulate my call. The kids are out front playing, and all these emergency vehicles, sheriffs and ambulance just come flying up the front yard. And my wife's bringing groceries in, and I hear, somebody called about a meth overdose. It was a sheriff. And I'm like, I'm in the bedroom, and my wife goes, that would be my husband. It wasn't funny, but today, and she just fell on the floor in the kitchen, was just weeping and just beside herself. And the kids had experienced that. And so a lot of pain, a lot of memories. There's never been a sacred cow in our family about this. My kids have all been totally welcome to ask any question. I don't hide any details. I will protect them if they need to be protected, but it's never been like that for us. And but the cool thing is, the most amazing thing is being here in Durango. We started going to Grace Church, and I loved that. Daisha actually took the kids to Grace Church before I ever got here because they had a pretty good youth program and a great youth pastor, and Ethan loved it. It was important to her. But the reality is, in the first year, or in the time that they were here, and I was in rehab, I'm just getting engulfed with the Word, right? It's awesome. I'm on fire by the time I get here. I had no idea, never thought about this with my wife, but all she could focus on was just maintaining the kids and their sanity in this time. And she wasn't able to focus on herself. And so she opens the door when I get there, and it was an awkward interaction. And I'm like thinking, it's the movies. It's going to be this glorious reunion, and it wasn't. And she had just really gone through so much pain and heartache. and having to kind of hold the kids together. So I got then again pissed off at God. I'm like, why are we doing this? And so she's now finding healing. She started going to Kiki and having meetings with Kiki, and Kiki's just guiding her into just finding Katie Sousa, and just soaking and just finding the Lord. Like, listen for the Lord. And I'm watching her get healed, and I'm going downhill, and it's making me mad. So again, having to deal with the anger situation, and we started going to counseling, actually, with one lady who was talking about the threshold of mind. But I just started getting bitter and just like, I'm so done with this God. I can't believe it. And we're flip-flopping again. So we flip-flopped while I was in rehab. Now we're flip-flopping again. She's totally finding the restoration of God. And I'm just like, what the crap is this? And so I'm trying to get my train of thought here as to where I'm at. And I'm close to the end of this, guys. I promise you. Yeah, we struggled real bad for 3 years. This was the turning point. I'm not going to play the song I was going to play. It's just too long. There's a song by Casting Crowns. Please look it up, and it's called Slow Fade. And if you feel like you struggled or even are struggling right now with, man, I'm going to tank. I feel like I might tank. Listen to this song. You have to understand it. The words say it's a slow fade when you give yourself away. It's a slow fade when black and white turn to gray. Thoughts invade, choices are made. The price will be paid when you give yourself away. That song came out while I was in rehab. It was just, every time it came on, I couldn't even hold myself together. But there is a song I want to play here in a second to end this. And I actually want to give you guys an opportunity to claim your ground today, actually, right now. Like if you're in that thought pattern, like I'm going to tank. My marriage is going to tank. I'm just seeing that. That's how it feels. No, it's not. No, you're not. You don't have to. It's a choice that is made, okay? I made a choice. I didn't trip into this. Yes, I was deceived. I was lied to. I was tricked. But it's a choice that's made that takes you to a place and you turn your back on God. So we're here. We're going through counseling. We were even counseling with Pastor Justin at Grace Church. And I was feeling like I was finding myself, but it really was so false, to be honest. And I got into a place of numbness, actually. I was just numb. I didn't have to be mad. I mean, I was like, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. I'm so done. So stupid. Like I knew I wouldn't go run off and do drugs. That was a dumb road I already went down. That's just stupid. Because I knew that wasn't happening. But I just got to a place I'm like, well, whatever. I'm done. We're probably going to end up divorced. This is so dumb. She's all on fire for God today, and I can't feel him at all. And she was told by somebody, show him this video one day. And she was always like, this is when last year of this time, she's like, it's always, YouTube's always on, Bethel's always on the TV when I come home, all this work, it's constant. And I literally walk in from work, and I'm like, I'm serious. I'm like, the sound would bug me. Today it's on, and I'm so thankful. But I was under a curse again, under a lie. That God couldn't love me, he couldn't restore me, that I couldn't have a special place in his heart. So I walk in from work one day, as many times before, and my wife's like, honey, you have to watch this. I'm like, whatever. I sit down at the table, and she puts this computer in front of me. Stop. She puts this computer. She puts the computer in front of me, and I sit down and I start watching this. I'm just thinking in my mind, whatever. And the first words, I had never heard this song. It's a secular song. You know, you hear every secular song in some restaurant or clothing store, something, right? I'd never heard this song ever in my life, not even the tune. So I'm grateful for it. I feel like that was ordained by God, to be honest, because Worship Mob, a group out in Colorado Springs, redid the song. And it's totally just a ministry. And I hear this, say something. I'm giving up on you. And man, if you could have just been inside my heart, that was it. I was literally at that point like, God, you better say something or I'm giving up on you. And I wasn't being ugly in my heart. I was like, I just can't handle this pain anymore. I can't do this anymore. And so I'm sitting there watching this video, and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh crap. I mean, I was like, and then in the next line, I'm sorry if I couldn't get to you. Anywhere I would have followed you. Now I'm putting my hand beside my head like this because they're all over there, and I'm starting to get weepy. Like God's touching me. Like I'm getting soft in my heart because it was so hard. And so I hear this song, and this song flipped me that day. I mean, miraculously flipped me to where I am today. And actually, to a degree, this song actually did it to a degree that when I look at my life, I don't want to be naive, but I look at my life, I'm like, God, I don't think I could ever go there again. No matter how mad I get, no matter how much anger wants to try to creep in, bitterness, resentment. It is a choice. And it's a slow fade to go back. You got to recognize that slow fade crap going on, and you repent immediately and come back to the Lord. And you say the right things with your mouth. God spoke the world into existence with his words. And he said the tongue is like a two-edged sword, and it actually carries life and death, the power of life and death. And if he spoke the world into existence, everything you see, did it with his words. And he made us in his image. And Jesus said, these things and greater things you will do in my name. You better watch your tongue. And I'm preaching to me. This is my life preach now. The things that I say, my wife catches me all the time. You have to watch what comes out of your mouth. You will speak death to yourself. And you did it to yourself because you chose to say those words. And I'm not saying that we got to condemn ourselves. I'm saying pay attention. You don't just suddenly go, oh, I love Jesus. I'm headed to hell. It's not like that. It's a process that we don't pay attention to. And the passion inside me is the anger at the enemy because I'm sick of his lies. And I'm sick of it for the church. And we don't need to be living under those lies anymore. That's condemnation. That's not living a life full. John 10:10 says that he came to give us life and life to the fullest. It's the thief that comes to steal and kill and destroy. It's the thief, listen, steal, kill. If you're dead, what is he destroying? Anything that relates to your life, to your family, your friends, your loved ones, anything. He wants to destroy any legacy that you could have left behind. He doesn't want you to have an impact on squat diddly. He hates you. That's a reality. He hates me. He hates what we stand for. He hates the Father. If the Father loves it, like purity in marriage, you know what he does? He does the exact opposite. He wants your marriage destroyed. Oh, he'd rather it never happened. Or that it happened and he destroyed it and he can gloat in that. That's the heart of the enemy. If he has one, it's definitely two sizes too small. That's the heart of the enemy. The heart of the Father is freedom, redemption, life, fullness. And I'm chasing it. I'm so done living some stupid lie that I bought into. The Father wants fullness for our life. That's what he wants. And that is what has happened in my life. And it shifted off of one person. I had to tell Sean. I met Sean Mulholland with Worship Mob. And I grabbed hold of him. I was nervous. I don't know why. He was walking by me. It was like right in the middle of this worship service. He got off the keyboard. And I realized who Sean Mulholland was our first night at Worship Mob in Colorado Springs. I'm like, he was walking by. Is that feeling like I don't want to bug the guy? And I grabbed his. I said, I got to talk to you. I said, your obedience to step out and get ridiculed for taking this secular song and redoing it like this saved my life and restored my entire family. Your obedience to step out and do something crazy. I'm getting bolder. Step out and do crazy. I was walking. I'm wanting to hear the Lord, but I was walking through somewhere the other day and I was like, who, Lord, who? That's how I felt. Like, and when I'm not at the place where when he speaks to me, I want to, he's really convicted me recently of instant obedience. And I'm learning to walk in that instant obedience. And like I was loving what you were saying last week or week before when it was, you said, you started talking, you didn't have a clue what you're going to say, but then all of a sudden, download, That's where I want to be. But to be instantly obedient, to be obedient to do something crazy like Sean Mulholland did with that song. So with that, I've been preaching long enough, and you guys are hungry, I'm sure, but I want to play this song. I want to ask you to close your eyes, though. There's a video that goes with it, which is powerful with Worship Mob, but close your eyes and just listen to this. What they've done is they shifted the song from a secular point of view, and then they show you God's response to you when you're saying, say something. And I remember in my mind, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. I felt like I was totally alone. How many of you feel alone in your struggles? And see, God wants you to know that you are not alone. Not just because he's here with you, but that's a lie from the enemy that you're the only person who could have gone through this kind of hell, because you're the only person that could be so disgusting and so unworthy. That's not true. Somebody else was going through this and changed this song, and it spoke to me. They just spoke my words. How in the heck did that just happen? So close your eyes if you would. He's going to play this song, and then we'll just have a time of ministry.
Say something, I'm giving up on you. I'll be the one if you want me to. And anywhere I would have followed you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'm feeling so small. It was over my head. I know nothing at all. I will stumble and fall. I'm still learning to love, just starting to crawl. Say something, I'm giving up on you. Sorry that I couldn't get to you. Anywhere I would have followed you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. Swallow my pride. You're the one that I love, and I'm saying goodbye. Say something, I'm giving up on you. And I'm sorry that I couldn't get to you. And anywhere I would have followed you. Oh, say something, I'm giving up on you. Say something, I'm giving up on you. Say something.
Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go.
Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light.
For all who are led by my Spirit are my sons and my daughters. You did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received my Spirit. You've been adopted as sons and daughters.
You are my son. Today I become your father. I am your father. You are my son.
Today, I'm going back to my father, and I'll say to my father, I don't deserve to be called your son. When his son was still a long way off, the father saw him. His heart pounding, he ran out, embraced him, and kissed him. The son started his speech. Father, I've sinned against you. I've sinned before you, and I don't deserve to be called your son ever again. But the father wasn't even listening. He was calling to the servants, quick, bring a clean set of clothes, and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. We're going to feast and party today. My son has come home. My son is here. He was given up for dead, but he is alive again. Given up for lost, and now he's found. My child is home.
I'm a good father. I know you, and I promise you can hear my voice. The world is so noisy. Sometimes you have trouble finding my voice in the crowd and the commotion of life. But if you will let me quiet your heart, my voice will reach you. I will cut through the loudness, the tremendous volume, and the great racket the world keeps clamoring around with. I am the gentle whisper inside you. Can you hear me? Can you hear my constant love beating inside you as close as the heart beating in your chest? I'm here. Settle your heart. Rest in my love and hear me calling to you. I'm calling your name.
I've been watching you, child. Still learning to love, just starting to grow. And I am waiting here now. Will you open your heart? I've been here all alone.
I want to challenge you to be bold and be brave right now. And that's not always easy. And one of the bravest people I know is my wife. One of the most bold and brave people I've ever met. And some of the strongest people I know, my kids. And they've all chosen to not leave the faith. They've all chosen to deal with things inside. We've had weeping sessions plenty of times at our house. But I want you to, I really want you to kick the devil in the teeth today. And if you're in a space at all that you feel like is territory that the enemy has taken that he shouldn't have, and you're in that give up space, we'll turn the music up a little bit in a second, but I just want you, let's just make it this simple. We also often say, come down here, kneel at the altar, whatever. There's no religious activity here. I'm asking you to stand up out of your seat, kneel down in the aisle, get in a place and a posture in your heart, in your physical body that says, I am done with this, God, and I release it to you. I will own this no longer. I don't need to go even one more day carrying this burden when Jesus said he would take it. And he did. So I'm going to challenge you, be bold, be brave. If you're feeling like my marriage is gone, it's tanking. I'm giving into this sin all the time. I'm tanking here. Let's push the devil back out the door on the other side of that threshold today. I'm just going to let the music play. If you're done here today, feel free to leave. Nobody's holding you. You're good. It's not disrespectful. I'm not considering it that at all. But I just want an opportunity to be given where you can actually say, I'm done with this, Lord. I'm not doing it anymore. I just want you. The phrase that goes on all the time at our house right now is, it's just Jesus. It's just Jesus, nothing else. We got to get back to the main thing. It's just Jesus. So if you turn it up.
You're the one that I love, and I'm saying goodbye.
If you need prayer, by all means, let us know. We want to pray over you.
Say something.